Media and their Democrats for finally finding a group of Democrats that they do not insist get access to our country immediately. And the problem with these immigrants is that they're white and not enough of them are being killed.
We have a refugee program.
I am sure there's been violence against one side of the
There has been violence. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I want to make a point. Violence does not equal genocide. So we need to be really, really clear about that. Because if you look
at
the violence,
dead guy, you may not say that.
No, I would say that, actually. Because if you look at what genocide is, it is very specific that you're trying to get rid of a people, a whole group of people. There is violence in South Africa. They've had a very big uptick in violence. But black people have seen the brunt of that violence.
Okay.
Not just
Then let me ask this question of the
Africans.
panel. If you get a passport and you're South African, and you have that passport and you're of Dutch descent, and someone else has the same passport, is this a tainted passport? Is it not equal? Are you not a citizen? Do you not have the same rights?
You know what?
Or they're special?
No. You're right. It's the same passport. That means you have to follow the laws. Each person has to follow the laws. And right now, what the Dutch is saying, they don't want to follow the laws of the land. So they're saying their passport, like it was during apartheid, when Africans didn't even have a passport because they had a passport.
I'm hearing them saying, my passport's not the same, and I fear for my life, and I'm leaving the country. That's what I'm hearing.
I also thought Trump said we're going to enforce immigration laws. And this is not enforcing immigration laws. It's breaking a law that clearly says if there's a genocide, you get to come as a refugee.
Well, he's put a refugee ban on practically everybody else. Most of that everybody else that I can think of are either black people or brown people. We are seeing right now Cuban mothers torn away as they are breastfeeding one-year-old U.S. citizen child and sent back to Cuba, where there is a cruel dictatorship. We are seeing Nicaraguans and Venezuelans and Haitians, where the country is held in a handbasket, and Cubans who had parole status to come into this country.
Anna, fair enough.
Told they have to leave.
Let's celebrate one thing together. America is still the country where the persecuted want to come. Period.
Oh, yes,
that's true.
And that's the
but
American
the problem
dream.
is that the white persecuted are being allowed in,
it's still
and the black and the brown
American
are
dream.
being torn.
Well, for the record, we did allow 20 million people to come here illegally, and this is 50 people. So, I mean,
I get it. Right? The numbers the math doesn't math, but it doesn't mean the facts of the situation are any different. I also just want to take great issue with the thinking that they are being persecuted, that they are suffering a genocide.
Why would they leave their homes?
Because
if everything is fine, why are they fleeing?
Because guess what? They want to come to America like a lot of people in the world.
Oh, the American dream is working? Oh, no, that's horrible.
But we have a system to prioritize people who really need to come here.
Well, that's a debate we can have, and we are.
No,
that's
not
a
debate.
It's still the magnet.
It is the process that has been set.
Well, the previous administration had priorities about who to let in, including, all kinds of folks who I would argue shouldn't be here. This administration, I guess, is going to set priorities about who not to let in.
But let's just be honest about what those priorities are, right? And by the way, I'm a Democrat here. I did not defend the Biden administration on immigration.
But you voted for him.
So
that doesn't mean that I defended him on immigration.
And you voted for a continuation of it in 2024, did you not?
I did not vote for his policies on immigration.
But you voted.
Did you vote?
You voted to extend the immigration policies of the last administration.
No, I did not vote for that.
The point is, you're in a party that opened the borders, and I'm in a party that closed the borders, and I think the American people prefer it our way.
Well, he's closed the borders to certain people.
That's right.
That's the debate.
The people who are coming here illegally.
The debate, though, is he's closed the borders to people who are seeking refuge.
By the way, I don't even disagree with you about the
white
translators. I think the people who helped the American military deserve a chance to be here. As long as they're vetted and as long as we know who they are, I'm in agreement with you. If you help the United States, if you help the U.S. military, if we help brave soldiers like you were, I'm in agreement with you about that. But I don't think these things are mutually exclusive. I think we can look at these situations.
So then why aren't they letting them in?
Apples,
Would you agree?
Assuming you think the genocide in South Africa, let's just for a moment assume that that's true. What is apples to apples is that there are 12,000.
So what's the difference between the refugees that they're talking about here and those refugees?
I could guess. I mean, I think everyone...
They're white.
They're white. Thank you. They are white. And I think, look, if that is how you feel, fine, then hold the line. But there are people all over the world, even people in this country right now, who are who have sought asylum, who are going through the process of asylum seeking, and have been detained by ICE and are being deported. there's also a genocide happening in the Congo right now that I don't see any Congolese being getting relief to come to this country. So there are Afghanis that helped us in Afghanistan that we have left behind. Even the last administration didn't do right by them. This administration can do right by them, but they are not, because it doesn't fit the narrative of the type of immigrants that we want in our country.
And even saying, there is also a genocide happening in Congo. We got to be careful about acknowledging that there's a genocide in South Africa.
That's right. There is no genocide.
No, of course, we're agreeing there. I mean, certainly there are white people in South Africa who have been victims of crimes. That happens all over the world. That certainly does not entitle someone to the level of persecution to be entitled to asylum in the United States. When we, as a nation, are turning away people, forget the woke stuff. I mean, literally, people who assisted the United States military in Afghanistan are not being admitted to this country now in favor of white South Africans under some genocide narrative that is just nonsense.
Trump has virtually halted refugee admission in America for people fleeing war and famine in places like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Back with Rick, Mark, and Eddie. Rick Stengel.
Yes, it's so deeply and morally wrong-headed and repulsive. These are the descendants of the people who created the most diabolical system of white supremacy in human history, apartheid. They're not directly responsible for it, but it was a system that actually moved black people off of the arable land. So they inherited the land that the black people had to give up. It was called forced removal. It was something called a Bantustan policy, where they moved black people out of the cities and farmlands into these remote areas with non-arable land. I mean, it was just one of the most worst processes ever. But what has happened in this strange, bizarre world we're living in is that the Afrikaners have become the darling of these right-wing white supremacist movements around the world, that it's like the lost cause for them. It's like the old Confederacy. They're held up as these white Christians who are being dispossessed of their land. It's like this is a modern replacement theory in a country where, by the way, white people make up 7% of the population and own 78% of the farmland. So it's actually, there's no injustice here. As you mentioned, it's taking places away from refugees who are really being crushed by authoritarian governments and military governments for these folks who have never had anything happen to them. I mean, Trump amazingly called it a genocide, one of the worst lies I've ever heard him say. There's just been a small handful of farmers that have been killed over the past 10 years. No land has actually been expropriated. So it's just a farce and a sham and a moral ugliness.
What happens now that he's taken this step?
I don't know. I mean, it's like a Batman movie or something where all the bad guys get collected under one roof. I mean, like, who else do you now go and find other racists who have repressed people and give them refugee status here? It's just, I don't know where it goes from here. But I mean, you even said it. It's like a headline from The Onion. I don't even know how to get more extreme than this.
I think it's important for us to understand that the Trump administration is a lot of things. But one thing it certainly is a white nationalist project. And oftentimes we don't want to describe it as such. I'm not reducing it to it, because there's greed, there's graft, there's all sorts of things happening around it. But we need to understand the way in which great replacement theory is driving this. There's a sense in which the immigration policy is all about demographic shifts. There's a sense around the assault on voting rights and civil rights. It's all about who will have the decision-making power to determine who will run the country. And here, this idea that the republic must remain a white nation is evidenced in this move, which is so explicit that it cannot be denied. And so when we don't describe it for what it is, we become, in an ironic way, complicit in what they're doing. It's a white nationalist agenda, it seems to me.
You know what I'm going to ask you? Where are the Democratic voices offering a different message to the world about who America is today, right now, as this is happening?
Look, I think you showed Chris Murphy. I think he's one of the people speaking out. And I think that Democrats are speaking out. I think the problem is that just in the time that we've been here, we have talked about Donald Trump accepting a $400 million aircraft from a royal family. We have talked about this instance of white nationalism, which I completely agree. I mean, if Donald Trump just didn't want immigrants, you'd have all of the terribleness we have. But it actually turns out he does want some immigrants. He wants the white Christians from South Africa to be immigrants to this country. You began, when we first sat down, talking about the rationing of pencils, right? A world in which the 11-year-old girl has a quota on the number of pencils she can have. Yes. All of these are of a part. They are all of Donald Trump, who wants to be a strongman. He wants to be a dictator. He wants to be able to dictate how he flies, how he lives, who he associates with. He likes associating. I think he likes the idea he got a plane from a royal family. I don't think he would have taken the plane if it had come from like Sweden or Switzerland. I think he liked the idea that it came from, a regime in the Middle East that is run by a royal family. And against that backdrop, you have Democrats trying to fight each of these fires when really what it is just one big blaze. And I think we need to understand that there is, as Eddie said, a through line that connects all of these things together.
Thank you guys for connecting all of these things together and for being here with me, Rick, Mark.